So, good afternoon, everyone. Today we are going to see heme synthesis and degradation. So, in that we are going to see the heme structure, functions of heme in the body, heme synthesis, and disorders associated with heme synthesis, that is porphyrias. We are going to see the types and enzyme defect in different porphyrias. And we are going to see heme degradation and the disorders associated with the heme degradation, that is hyperbilirubinemia and jaundice. So where is this heme present? So this heme is present in the hemoglobin. We know hemoglobin is made up of heme and globin chains. Okay? And we know that hemoglobin is present in the red blood cells. So red blood cells contain hemoglobin and hemoglobin contain heme and globin. Okay? We know hemoglobin is made up of different globin chains, 4 globin chains, and each globin chain will be having a heme group. So there are 4 heme groups present in the hemoglobin. And we know this RBC is present in the blood. So in the blood, RBC is present. Inside the RBC, hemoglobin is present. And within the hemoglobin, 4 globin chains are present, in which one heme group is present in each globin chain. So that we have to remember. And coming to the structure of heme. So we are seeing the basics of heme structure. So this is the heme structure. Here you can see. So there are 4 globin chains in the hemoglobin. In each globin chain, there is a heme molecule. So this is the heme structure, which contains a porphyrin ring. So this is a porphyrin ring, and porphyrin ring contains 4 pyrrole groups. So these are the pyrrole groups. So the structure of the heme represents a porphyrin ring. It contains a porphyrin ring, and porphyrin ring contains 4 pyrrole groups. So heme consists of porphyrin ring with central iron atom, and porphyrin ring consists of 4 pyrrole groups linked by methylene bridges. Okay. So here you can see the porphyrin, structure of the porphyrin present in the heme, and these are the pyrrole rings which are connected by the methylene bridges. So we are saying the very basics in the structure. We are just seeing the basics. So remember the basics. Porphyrin ring, and porphyrin ring contains 4 pyrrole groups. And this is the structure of heme. So heme structure contains, we know, one iron atom and the porphyrin ring and the pyrrole groups, and apart from that it contains methyl group, propionyl group and vinyl group in the borders. Okay. Here you can see methyl group, propionyl group, and this is vinyl group. These are present on the heme. So hemoglobin contains 4 globin chains. So each chain contains 1 heme, and each heme contains 1 iron. So hemoglobin molecule contains 4 iron atoms totally. So during the oxygen transport, we will be seeing each hemoglobin contains 4 iron atoms. So coming to the functions of the heme, functions of heme are nothing but the functions of the hemoglobin. Okay? Delivery of oxygen from lungs to the tissues, and transport of carbon dioxide and protons from tissues to lungs. And heme is also a part of the myoglobin, cytochromes, and enzymes like peroxidase, catalase, tryptophan, pyrrolase, and nitric oxide synthase. So heme is a component of different biochemical substances. And coming to the synthesis of heme. So coming to the synthesis, in any synthesis, any biosynthesis of any biochemical substance, we have to see the site and what are the initial substrates. So that is the main thing that we have to start with any metabolism or any biosynthesis. So here The heme synthesis occurs in the liver cells and erythroid cells. That means erythrocyte producing cells which are present in the bone marrow. So this heme synthesis occurs in liver cells and erythroid cells. And the substrate which are required for the synthesis of heme are succinyl-CoA and glycine. So substrates are the initial biochemical substances which are required for synthesis of a biochemical essential substance. Okay? So these are succinyl-CoA and glycine or initial substrates for synthesis of heme. And some reactions which are required for heme synthesis take place in the mitochondria, and some reactions take place in the cytoplasm, because the enzymes necessary for some steps are present in the mitochondria, and the enzymes necessary for some steps are present in the cytoplasm. So that's why some steps or some reactions take place in the mitochondria and some reactions take place in the cytoplasm. And coming to the steps, so this is the first step, formation of delta aminolevuline, the first step, in which the succinyl-CoA and glycine combines to form aminolevuline. Okay, and the enzyme required for this is aminolevulinate synthase. So these are the substrates, and this is the first step. And this enzyme is very important because this is the regulatory enzyme for the heme synthesis. So first step is very important. Substrates are important. And the first enzyme is very important. And the second step is synthesis of porphobilinogen. So two molecules of aminolevuline combine to form porphobilinogen. And the enzyme required is aminolevuline dehydratase. And the third step is formation of porphyrin ring. That is porphobilinogen, 4 molecules combined to form uroporphyrinogen 3. So this occurs in the presence of enzymes uroporphyrinogen 1 and 3 synthase and co-synthase respectively. And the fourth step is conversion of uroporphyrinogen 3 to protoporphyrinogen 9. So here different porphyrins are formed in between, and finally protoporphyrinogen 9 is formed. So all these are in your textbook anyway. And synthesis of heme from protoporphyrin 9 is the final step and last step, and the enzyme required for this is ferrochelatase. So this is very important step because this is the final step, and from which heme is synthesized from protoporphyrin. So this is the overview of synthesis of heme. So the important step, you have to remember the complete biosynthesis, all the steps. But the main things that you have to remember is the substrates, succinyl-CoA and glycine. And the first product form is aminolevuline. And the first enzyme and the regulatory enzyme is aminolevulinate synthase. That is very important. And many intermediates are formed in between, and these intermediates are known as porphyrins. Because it contains porphyrin rings, most of the intermediates contain porphyrin rings. So all these are known as porphyrins. The intermediates which are formed in the biosynthesis of heme are known as porphyrins. And you have to remember all the enzymes. And you have to remember the final step. Protoporphyrin 9 is converted to heme in the presence of enzyme ferrochelatase by addition of iron. Okay, ferrous iron. And next, coming to the overall steps, we know some part of the synthesis occurs in this is the cytoplasm and this is mitochondria. So some part occurs in the mitochondria and some part occurs in the cytoplasm. So in the synthesis of heme, you have to remember that a part of the synthesis occurs in the mitochondria and a part occurs in the cytoplasm. If you see in detail here, you can see the first step, that is the conversion of the substrates glycine and succinyl-CoA to the aminolevulic acid, occurs in the mitochondria, and all the remaining steps are occurring in the cytoplasm. And again, the final step, that is conversion of protoporphyrin to the heme, is occurring in the mitochondria. Okay, so some parts are occurring in cytoplasm and some part is occurring in the mitochondria. Because some enzymes are present in the cytoplasm, and some enzymes are present in the mitochondria. So that is very important in case of heme synthesis. So next, coming to the regulation of the heme synthesis, we know the regulation of synthesis of any biochemical substance is very necessary to maintain balance in the body. So for any biosynthesis of any substance, many enzymes are required, but there are key enzymes or regulatory enzymes. Only some 1 or 2 or 3 key enzymes or regulatory enzymes are present. These enzymes will regulate the complete metabolism. So even though many enzymes are required for any metabolism or any biosynthesis or any metabolic cycle, there are some 1 or 2 key enzymes which will regulate the complete metabolism. So we have to remember the key enzymes. So here we know what is the key enzyme. The first enzyme, the amino levolate synthase, the first enzyme is the key enzyme or regulatory. So why regulation is necessary means because the biosynthesis of heme is required for synthesis of different substances. So the heme that is produced in liver is necessary for synthesis of different hemoproteins. Apart from hemoglobin, myoglobin, cytochrome. So for all these synthesis, heme is required, and that heme is formed in the liver. And the heme that is synthesized in the erythroid cells, that is used for synthesis of hemoglobin. We know heme is synthesized in liver cells and also in erythroid cells. And the heme synthesized in liver cells is used for synthesis of different hemoprotein. And the heme which is synthesized in erythroid cells is required for synthesis of hemoglobin. And coming to the regulation in liver, the first step in heme biosynthesis is catalyzed by amino levolate synthase. So this is the key enzyme. This is the regulatory enzyme, and the first step is the rate limiting step. Okay. And this enzyme is controlled by heme itself. Heme controls this enzyme, and this enzyme will regulate the complete biosynthesis of the heme. Okay. Heme controls the enzyme by 3 mechanisms. We had seen all these mechanisms in the enzyme chapter. So heme controls the enzyme activity, the enzyme amino levolate synthase activity by 3 mechanisms: feedback inhibition, repression of the ALA synthase, and inhibition of transport of ALA synthase from cytosol to mitochondria. So these are the 3 mechanisms by which heme controls the regulatory enzyme amino levolate synthase, and this amino levolate synthase in turn regulates the complete biosynthesis of the heme. And going to detail, so feedback inhibition, you know what is the feedback inhibition? From the substrate, different intermediates are formed, and finally product is formed with the help of different enzymes, and finally the product will inhibit one of the rate limiting enzymes. Okay, so here the product will inhibit the first enzyme or any second enzyme, any enzyme. The product will inhibit the enzyme and it will regulate the synthesis of the that product only. So that is feedback inhibition. So in this case, the product is the heme and the first enzyme is the ALA synthase. So the heme is inhibiting the first enzyme ALA synthase by feedback inhibition. So this is feedback inhibition. And coming to the repression of ALA synthase. So what is repression? We had already seen in the enzyme repression and derepression. So repression means the enzyme is also a protein which is synthesized by transcription and translation. Okay. So when the product is sufficiently formed, then this product will be attached to the operator site along with the aporepressor. So this product acts as the repressor. It will attach to the operator site and it will inhibit the synthesis of the enzyme. So that is repression. Okay. And whenever the product is decreased, whenever the requirement of heme is there in the body, then this heme will be detached from the operator site. That is known as derepression. When derepression occurs, this operator site will become active and it will synthesize the enzyme ALA synthase. And again, it will be producing the heme in that. Okay. So heme is controlling the ALA synthase by acting as repressor. So this is repression and de-repression, which we had already seen in the enzyme stop. Regulation by enzymes. Okay. So here, heme when produced in excess quantity will act as a repressor and is attached to operator gene and inhibit the synthesis of ALA synthase, which in turn inhibits the synthesis of heme, controls the synthesis of heme. Same way, if the heme is required, heme is less in the body, the requirement of heme is there in the body, then the heme will come out, which is known as de-repression. Operator site will help in production of ALA synthase and heme will get produced. Okay. So this is depression and de-repression. And the next mechanism is inhibition of transport of ALA synthase from cytosol to mitochondria. So if heme is excess, what heme does is it won't allow the transport of ALA synthase from cytoplasm to the mitochondria. So as the first step takes place in the mitochondria, it can't be take place. The first step won't occur. So the production of heme will be controlled. So in this way, heme is controlling the enzyme, which is then controlling the synthesis of heme. So this is the regulation of heme biosynthesis in the liver cells. So here the main enzyme is aminoleukinate synthase. And coming to the regulation in the erythroid cells, we know heme is also produced in the erythroid cells. So here the regulatory enzymes are the uroporphyrinogen synthase and ferrochelatase. So these are the enzymes which regulate the heme synthesis in erythroid cells. So this is the regulation of heme synthesis in liver cells and erythroid cells. Next, coming to the disorders of heme synthesis. Okay. So we know in heme synthesis, the most of the intermediates formed are porphyrins. So the intermediates formed in the heme synthesis of porphyrins. So that's why the defect in the heme synthesis leads to porphyrias. The porphyrias are the defects in the heme synthesis. So porphyrias are the metabolic disorders of heme synthesis characterized by increased excretion of porphyrins or porphyrin precursors. Porphyrias can be acquired or inherited. Okay. Most commonly, they are inherited or congenital, and in some cases, they are acquired. These porphyrias. These are named as porphyrias because most of the intermediates formed in the heme synthesis are porphyrins, and due to the enzyme defects, these porphyrins will be accumulated in the body. So that's why these defects are commonly known as porphyrias. Okay. And coming to the classification, these porphyrias are classified into erythropoietic porphyrias and hepatic porphyrias. If the defect in the heme synthesis occurs in the erythroid cells, then that is known as erythropoietic porphyrias. If the defect of heme synthesis occurs in the hepatic cells, which leads to accumulation of porphyrins and porphyrias, that is known as hepatic porphyrias. Okay. We know porphyrins, the synthesis of heme occurs in both in erythroid cells and hepatic cells. If the defect of heme synthesis occurs in the erythroid cells, which leads to accumulation of porphyrins, it is known as erythropoietic porphyrias. If the defect of heme synthesis occurs in the liver cells, in that case also porphyrins will accumulate in the body. In both the cases, porphyrins will be accumulated in the body. But the origin of defect, whether it is occurs in the erythroid cells or hepatic cells, depending upon which it is divided into erythropoietic porphyrias and hepatic porphyrias. Okay. Here the enzyme deficiency occurs in the erythroid cells. Here the enzyme deficiency occurs in the liver cells. So in both cases, the defective heme synthesis occurs. In both cases, the porphyrins will be accumulated in the body. But the main thing is the defect occurs in the erythroid cells, here the defect occurs in the hepatic cells. So here you can see the different porphyrias. These are the diseases. The deficiency porphyria, acute intermittent porphyria, congenital erythropoietic porphyria, porphyria cutanea tarda, hereditary coproporphyria, variegate porphyria, and erythropoietic protoporphyria. So all these are different types of porphyrias, and these are the corresponding enzyme defects. These are the enzyme defects which catalyze the different reactions, which involve the intermediates in the synthesis of heme. And these defects, these porphyrias which are marked with the arrow are erythropoietic porphyrias, and remaining are the hepatic porphyrias. That means these enzyme defects, so these which are marked with the arrow are the erythropoietic porphyrias, in which these enzyme defect occurs. Okay, uroporphyrin 3 co-synthase and ferrochelatase enzyme. So that means these enzyme defects most commonly occur in the erythroid cells, and remaining all enzyme defects occur in the liver cells. Okay. So these are different types of porphyrias. Here you can see the classification. We have to mention hepatic porphyrias and erythropoietic porphyrias, and these are the hepatic type of porphyrias, and these are the erythropoietic type of porphyrias, and these are the enzyme defects. In the middle column, these are the enzyme defects due to which it leads to accumulation of the porphyrins. And these are the characteristics of the symptoms. Symptoms are a little bit common for all the porphyrias, all the types of porphyrias. So the common symptoms are abdominal pain, vomiting, neuropsychiatric symptoms, photosensitivity, and increase in hemolysis. These are the common symptoms. And these are all the congenital or inherited porphyrias. And acquired porphyrias occur due to lead poisoning. So when lead is taken by a person, then it will inhibit the enzymes ferrochelatase and ALA dehydratase. So we know ALA dehydratase is the enzyme that is catalyzed in the second step, and ferrochelatase is catalyzed in the last step in the heme synthesis. So when lead is taken, when lead poisoning occurs, these enzymes will be affected, which leads to accumulation of the different porphyrias, which leads to porphyria. So this is acquired type of porphyria. So these are some pictures of porphyrias. Here you can see the wolf skin-like changes of skin. And this is the normal urine on the left side. And on the right side, this is the urine of a porphyria patient. Because different type of porphyrins are accumulated in the blood, they are excreted in the urine. So that's why different type of the urine color will be changed due to presence of porphyrins. That is intermediates which are formed in the synthesis of heme. So this is about the synthesis of heme and the defects in the synthesis of heme. So we had seen the structure of heme. So what is the main thing that we are seeing in structure of the heme? The pyrrole ring. The pyrrole ring is present. Porphyrin ring is present, and 4 pyrrole groups are present. The central iron atom is present, and the pyrrole groups are attached by the methylene groups. So that is the important aspect of the structure, and apart from that, methyl, vinyl, and propanyl groups are attached. So that is the important aspects of the structure of the heme. And coming to the functions, we know heme it is necessary for synthesis of hemoglobin, myoglobin, and the cytochromes, and it is used for transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide, all these things. And coming to the synthesis of heme, we know synthesis of heme occurs in the liver and erythroid cells, and some part of the synthesis takes place in the mitochondria, some part takes place in the cytoplasm, and the substrate required for the heme synthesis of succinyl-CoA and glycine. And the first enzyme and the important enzyme and key enzyme, regulatory enzyme is the aminolevulate synthase, which catalyzes the first step in which aminolevulate is formed. That is very important. And the last enzyme, ferrochelatase, which is necessary for the synthesis of heme is important. And coming to the regulation, aminolevulate synthase is regulatory enzyme in the liver, and this is controlled by the heme. And heme controls the aminolevulate by 3 mechanisms: feedback mechanism, and repression of the ALA synthase and transport of the ALA synthase from the cytoplasm to the mitochondria. And in erythroid cells, the regulation occurs by the other enzymes, the phototelinase and the other enzymes. And coming to the defects of the heme synthesis, as porphyrins are formed as intermediates in the heme synthesis, the defects are commonly known as porphyrins. So you have to remember that defect whether it occurs in the erythroid cell or in the liver cell. If it occurs in the erythroid cell, erythropoietic porphyrin. If it occurs in the liver cell, hepatic porphyrin. And again, these hepatic and erythropoietic porphyrins are divided depending upon the enzyme defect. And depending upon the enzyme defect, different types of porphyrins are accumulated in the body. And these will be accumulated in the blood and they are excreted in the urine. So all this we have seen about the heme synthesis. Coming to heme degradation, what happens to this heme? We know heme is present in the hemoglobin. Is a part of hemoglobin, heme plus globin, and hemoglobin is present in the RBC. So where we are getting this heme from? From the hemoglobin itself. So 80% of the heme we are getting from the hemoglobin of the erythrocytes, and only 20% is coming from the other sources like immature RBC, myoglobin, etc. Other hemoglobins. But 80% of the heme which is being degraded in the body, we are getting from the erythrocytes. And how these erythrocytes and when these erythrocytes are degraded, we know that RBC, the erythrocytes are degraded approximately in 120 days. And these are degraded by the reticuloendothelial system. We know all that means. Erythrocyte degraded by macrophages of the reticuloendothelial system, which includes spleen and liver. And hemoglobin is cleaved, the RBC is lysed, and the hemoglobin is cleaved into protein part globin and non-protein part heme. So here you can see the RBC as a cell turnover, as a normal body cell turnover. The RBC will get lysed, and this RBC will get lysed in the reticuloendothelial system, and the hemoglobin will be coming out into the bloodstream. And this hemoglobin is cleaved into heme and globin. Heme and globin. And this heme is converted to biliverdin and bilirubin, the pigments. Okay. And this globin is nothing but the amino acids. We know globin is the 4 globin chains are present in the hemoglobin, which are nothing but polypeptide chains which are made up of amino acids. So these are degraded into amino acids. So these can be reutilized for the synthesis of globin chain, or they can be utilized for some other amino acid metabolism. Okay. And here it is converted to biliverdin and bilirubin. So seeing the overall view, so RBC is lysed, hemoglobin comes out, hemoglobin is divided into globin and heme, and globin, we know globin is nothing but a polypeptide chain of amino acids. So this is degraded into amino acids. So these amino acids can be reutilized for the synthesis of globin chain, for synthesis of hemoglobin, or these amino acids add up to the amino acid pool and they will be utilized for the other amino acid metabolism. And coming to the heme, this heme is degraded to the bilirubin. Okay? And this bilirubin is excreted in the urine and feces. And we know iron is also present in the heme, which is recycled. So that this only we have seen already, weight of the globin. We know it is degraded to individual amino acids, and these amino acids will go to different amino acid metabolism, or they can be utilized for fresh globin chains. And coming to heme, we know heme is converted to biliverdin by heme oxygenase, and biliverdin is converted to bilirubin by biliverdin reductase. Okay, this is the fate of the heme. And this is the degradation of the heme. Degradation of heme is nothing but it is degraded to biliverdin and bilirubin. So this is the heme degradation. The enzyme required, the first enzyme required for the heme degradation is heme oxygenase. So this heme oxygenase cleaves the methylene bridges which are present between the pyrrole rings to form biliverdin, which is a green pigment. And this utilizes NADPH and O. Okay. So the hemoglobin gets heme. From hemoglobin we get the heme, and this heme is degraded to biliverdin in the presence of enzyme heme oxygenase. This is the first step. The second step is biliverdin is converted to bilirubin in the presence of enzyme biliverdin reductase. Okay, so this is the main steps in the degradation of heme. Heme to biliverdin, biliverdin to bilirubin. Next, what happens to this bilirubin? So this all happens in the blood only. Okay, biliverdin to bilirubin. So bilirubin is formed in the blood. So what happens to this bilirubin? This bilirubin will goes to the liver. Okay, so bilirubin can't transport it to liver directly. So the bilirubin will be attached to the albumin, transport protein albumin, and bilirubin albumin complex is formed, and this complex is transported to the liver. And of course, ligandin is present in the liver, which prevents the backflow of the bilirubin into the blood. So bilirubin moves to the liver by combining with the albumin. So this is the transport of bilirubin. So what happens to the bilirubin in the liver? The next step is conjugation. So the bilirubin is transported in plasma in the bound form to albumin, and approximately 25 milligrams of bilirubin can bind tightly to albumin per 100 ml of plasma. So the next step is conjugation. So after entering into the liver, what happens to the bilirubin is conjugation. So the bilirubin is conjugated by glucuronate or glucuronic acid, by which the bilirubin is converted to bilirubin monoglucuronide and bilirubin diglucuronide. And the enzyme which catalyzes this glucuronation is bilirubin glucuronyl transferase. Bilirubin glucuronyl transferase. This is the enzyme by which bilirubin is converted to bilirubin diglucuronide. Okay. This is known as conjugation. So bilirubin before entering the liver is unconjugated bilirubin, and bilirubin after entering the liver is conjugated bilirubin. So here you know in the liver the bilirubin is conjugated with 2 molecules of glucuronate, and the enzyme required is bilirubin glucuronyl transferase, and finally the bilirubin is conjugated and it becomes bilirubin diglucuronide. So this occurs in the liver, which is known as conjugation of bilirubin. And after conjugation, excretion of the bilirubin, secretion of the bilirubin. First, bilirubin is secreted into the intestine through biliary system. Okay, here excretion means not excretion of the bilirubin. First, it is secreted. The bilirubin, which is conjugated in the liver, is secreted to the intestines through biliary tract. So this conjugated bilirubin often in the intestines, the bacteria present in the intestine will act on the bilirubin. Then urobilinogen is formed, and this urobilinogen is finally converted to stercobilin and urobilin and is excreted in the stools and the urine. And of course, some part is reabsorbed, but most of the part of urobilin excreted in the urine, and most of the urobilin is converted to stercobilin and is excreted in the stools. That's why we are getting the colors to the stools and the urine. So secretion and then excretion. Secretion to the biliary tract and intestine, and excretion in the stools and urine. So excretion, the conjugated bilirubin is excreted into the bile canaliculi, which then enters the bile. So almost all the bilirubin that enters is conjugated, because after entering the liver only, it will enter the bile. So almost greater than 90% is conjugated bilirubin. So bilirubin glucuronides are hydrolyzed in intestine by specific bacterial enzymes, and that is beta glucuronidases, to liberate bilirubin. Okay? So again the bilirubin glucuronides will become bilirubin, and the bilirubin is then converted to urobilinogen, and a small part of which may be reabsorbed into the circulation. and urobilinogen is converted to urobilin and stercobilin. This we have already seen. And urobilin is enters the liver and is excreted in the urine, and stercobilin is excreted in the feces. Okay? And we know it's urobilinogen we are getting from the bilirubin. So if you see the complete view, so first of all, the RBC lysis occurs, the hemoglobin will come out, the hemoglobin is cleaved to form heme and globin. Globins will go in the other way, that is different. Coming to the heme is degraded to form biliverdin and bilirubin, and this bilirubin is unconjugated bilirubin which is present in the blood. So all this occurs in the blood, okay, in the bloodstream. So the bilirubin formed here is unconjugated bilirubin. So this is attached to the albumin and this is transported to the liver. So inside the liver, what happens is this unconjugated bilirubin will get conjugated by glucuronides. The enzyme required for this is glucuronide transferase. So transferase enzyme is required for conjugation of bilirubin. So by the conjugation with the glucuronides, this unconjugated bilirubin is converted to the conjugated bilirubin. So this step occurs in the liver. So after the conjugation process, the conjugated bilirubin or direct bilirubin, which is also known as direct bilirubin. Unconjugated bilirubin is known as indirect bilirubin, and the conjugated bilirubin is known as direct bilirubin. So this direct bilirubin is secreted into the biliary system, from which it is secreted to the intestine. Okay? So when the unconjugated bilirubin, after reaching the intestine, they again the glucuronides are removed from this bilirubin by bacterial enzymes present in the intestine, and this bilirubin is converted to the urobilinogen in the intestine by the enzymes, the bacterial enzymes present in the intestine, and this urobilinogen is converted to urobilin, which is excreted in the urine, and stercobilin, which is excreted in the feces. So this is the complete degradation of the heme, right from hemoglobin to the excretion as urobilin and stercobilin. So this all you have to remember: lysis, heme, from heme bilirubin, unconjugated biliverdin, unconjugated bilirubin, and unconjugated bilirubin to conjugated bilirubin in liver, and conjugated bilirubin secreted to biliary tract and small intestine, and this conjugated bilirubin will become gluconides are removed, it becomes again unconjugated bilirubin, and this becomes urobilinogen by bacterial enzymes, and urobilin is excreted in the urine feces as urobilin and stercobilin. And what are the defects? The defects of the heme degradation is jaundice. So we know the heme degradation, in the heme degradation we are getting the bilirubin only. So in the defect, the bilirubin will be accumulated. So accumulation of bilirubin is nothing but hyperbilirubinemia or jaundice. So this is the patient of jaundice. That is yellowish discoloration of the sclera in skin is known as jaundice. So we know there are different types of jaundice: pre-hepatic or hemolytic jaundice, hepatic or also known as hepatocellular jaundice, post-hepatic or obstructive jaundice. Okay, these are the types of jaundice. And we had already seen the different defects in the jaundice: the pre-hepatic jaundice or hemolytic jaundice. The defect is before entering the liver. Okay, so that's why unconjugated bilirubin will be increased. Okay, here the defect is production of the bilirubin, excess of bilirubin by lysis. So this is generally seen in malaria or fever. So this is the hepatocellular or hepatic jaundice. Here the defect is production is normal. Here the defect is conjugation. As the defect is within the liver, so here the defect is conjugation. So the production of hemoglobin is production of bilirubin is normal, but the conjugation is abnormal. So that's why in the hepatic jaundice, both the indirect and direct bilirubin both will be increased in the hepatic jaundice. So this is generally seen in the liver disease like liver cirrhosis, hepatitis, all these diseases. This is seen generally. In this case, both direct and indirect will be increased. Bilirubin will be increased. Here the indirect bilirubin is increased because direct bilirubin, indirect both are increased. Indirect is increased because the production of indirect bilirubin is normal, but there is defect in conjugation. So that's why indirect bilirubin will be accumulated. Coming to the direct bilirubin, here due to the defect in the liver, there will be inflammation of the liver cells. Due to the inflammation, there will be a small element of edema. Due to that element of edema, there will be obstruction to the flow of the conjugated bilirubin. Some part of the bilirubin will be conjugated, but that part will be obstructed due to edema of the hepatic cells. So due to that edema, due to that element of obstruction, the conjugated bilirubin will also accumulate in the hepatic cells. So both indirect and direct bilirubin are increased in the hepatic jaundice. So coming to the post-hepatic or obstructive jaundice. Here the production is normal, the conjugation is normal, but after conjugation, the secretion, the excretion of the bilirubin is different. Okay? Due to tumors or due to stones, the secretion of this conjugated bilirubin into the biliary tract and intestine is defect here. That's why the conjugated bilirubin is increased in the obstructive jaundice. Okay? That's why bilirubin is increased in all types of jaundice, but unconjugated is increased, indirect is increased in the first case, that is hemorrhagic jaundice. Both are increased in the hepatic jaundice, and direct is increased in the post-hepatic jaundice. Because here the defect is obstruction. The conjugation is normal, but after conjugation, this conjugated bilirubin can't enter the biliary tract and intestine due to obstruction. Okay, that's why conjugated bilirubin will be increased. And these are the causes for different types of jaundice: the prehepatic due to hemorrhagic anemia, malaria, fever, all those things, and hepatic jaundice due to hepatitis and cirrhosis, and all other hereditary hyperbilirubemias. And post-hepatic will be due to stones and tumors or inflammation. And apart from that, inherited disorders like Gilbert syndrome, Crigler-Najjar syndrome, type 1, type 2, and Stevens-Johnson's and Rotter syndrome. In all these also there will be defect. And there are different defects, decreased hepatic uptake and defect in the glucophage transferase, defect in secretion, and defect in the uptake and secretion. So these are the defects at different steps in the degradation excretion of the bilirubin. Different defect in different steps which occurs hereditary, the congenital, which leads to different types of hyperbilirubinemias. So in all the cases, what happens is finally the bilirubin will be accumulated. The defect can be at the stage of uptake, or defect can be in any enzyme during the stage of conjugation. Glucophage transferase is the enzyme required for conjugation. So the defect can be in the conjugation, the defect can be in the secretion, or the defect can be in both secretion. In any case, finally the bilirubin will be increased, which leads to hyperbilirubinemias. So these congenital defects leads to congenital hyperbilirubinemias. So these are the different diseases which are nothing but congenital hyperbilirubinemias. These are okay. The defect is different, but the final result is same, hyperbilirubinemia. So the biochemical parameters which are used for assessing the jaundice are photobilirubin, the liver function test. Photobilirubin, direct bilirubin, AST or SGOT, ALT or STPT, ALP alkaline phosphatase, and apart from that, urine bile salts, bile pigments, urine bilirubin and measure for differentiating different type of jaundice. And we know total bilirubin is increased in all types of jaundice. Indirect is increased in hemolytic jaundice. Direct is increased in obstructive jaundice. Both indirect and direct are increased in the hepatic. And we know we will get the indirect bilirubin by subtracting direct bilirubin from the total. And coming to the enzymes, we know the enzymes are increased in the liver disease, in the hepatic jaundice, because in hepatic jaundice there is the underlying liver disease. So due to that there will be damage to the liver cells. So these are the enzymes present in the liver cells, AST and ALT. So that's why in hepatic jaundice, in liver damage, liver cell damage is AST ALT. So only AST ALT are increased in the hepatic jaundice. And coming to the obstructive jaundice, this ALP will be increased to obstructive jaundice, because in obstructive jaundice the defect is in the biliary tract, and this ALP is present in the biliary cells. So in the obstructive jaundice, the underlying defect is in the biliary tract. So as the ALP is present in the biliary tract, the damage to the biliary tract leads to the increased alkaline phosphatase. So that's why ALP is increased in the obstructive jaundice. So serum protein will increase in all types of jaundice, indirect is in hemolytic, both indirect and direct is in hepatic, and direct is increased in the obstructive jaundice. And coming to the other findings, urinary findings, the urobilinogen is increased in the prehepatic or hemolytic jaundice, and bile pigments, bile salts in urine are seen in the post-hepatic jaundice, are significantly seen in the post-hepatic jaundice. So this finishes the degradation of the heme. So in the degradation of the heme, the main things that you have to remember is degradation of heme, simply hemoglobin is cleaved to heme and globin, and this heme is converted to bilirubin and bilirubin. Okay. And this bilirubin is uptake of bilirubin by liver, and this occurs by combining the bilirubin with the albumin. And after uptake, conjugation. Conjugation means indirect bilirubin, unconjugated bilirubin is converted to the conjugated bilirubin by addition of diglucuronides. So the enzyme is glucuronide transferase. Okay, and this conjugated bilirubin by secretion is secreted to the biliary tract, from which it enters the intestine. That is known as secretion. So after secretion, again the removal of the glucuronides. Bilirubin is conjugated bilirubin converted to unconjugated, and again this unconjugated bilirubin is converted to urobilin by the intestinal enzymes. Intestinal bacterial enzymes, this bilirubin is converted to the urobilinogen. And finally, this urobilinogen is excreted in the urine and feces in the form of urobilin and sterol. Okay, so this is the mechanism by which heme is degraded and excreted. So the defects related to heme degradation are jaundice, hyperbilirubinemia, because the defect can be anywhere at any point of at any stage of the degradation. The main thing that is occurring is accumulation of the bilirubin, hyperbilirubinemia. So that's why the defect of the heme degradation is hyperbilirubinemia or jaundice. We had seen the different types of jaundice, hemolytic, hepatic, and post-obstructive jaundice, and we had seen the defect in the prehepatic or hemolytic jaundice. The defect is in the production. In the hepatic jaundice, the defect is in the conjugation. In the post-hepatic, the defect is in the secretion or excretion of the conjugated. So in any case, the bilirubin level will be increased. And coming to congenital hyperbilirubinemia, the defect is a different stage. The defect can be uptake of the unconjugated bilirubin, conjugation of the bilirubin in the liver, or secretion of the conjugated. Anything, the unconjugated bilirubin will be increased in the blood. Okay? The bilirubin will be increased in the blood, which leads to hyperbilirubinemia. So those are known as congenital hyperbilirubinemia. So this is about the synthesis of heme and the defects in the synthesis of heme, that is porphyrias, and degradation of the heme and the defects in the degradation of heme, that is jaundice. So this finishes the heme. Okay. So thank you and all the best.